What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York, calling from the quarantine zone again, and this time we got Andy Marshall of Saor as well as Fuath. Thank you for your time today, man. I appreciate it.
Cheers, thanks for having me.
Yep, it's so great to have you here. I gotta say that your last album, Forgotten Past, was definitely a memorable album for 2019. I really want to know, first talking about Saor with Forgotten Past, how was the making of Forgotten Past? Was there kind of like a thought process revolving around it? How did Forgotten Past sort of come to be?
Well, the previous album was Guardians, and I went in a kind of more folky direction. Like folk metal direction, and I think I kind of wanted to go back to a little bit more of a black metal, atmospheric black metal direction with Forgotten Past, so that's where that started, and it took me a while to start recording demos and stuff like that, but yeah, that's about it. I just wanted a more atmospheric black metal album with folk elements rather than it being more on the folk metal side.
Mm-hmm. And like, yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, because when it comes to Saor, like, I would be able to tell what would be off of Guardians or Aura or even Roots. Like, it seems like experimentation seems to really play a role in Saor's music, right? It's like you don't have like a style that you tend to try to stick with, right?
I've always got like a vision for each album, but I always end up doing demos, and then I end up deleting them, and then re-recording them, and then deleting them, and then re-recording them again. So, yeah, I have loads of different ideas. I always think of new things to add and things to take out. I never go into like recording an album thinking I'm going to do like a specific style of music. I just, whatever comes naturally, that's that. I never go into recording an album thinking I'm going to do a black metal album or a folk metal album or whatever. Yeah, so yes, experimentations.
Have you ever been worried that the stuff you'll delete is going to be like a B-side one day and just be the biggest hit you've ever had?
I have no idea. I mean, I've got hundreds of demos just sitting about on hard drives and stuff that probably were pretty good, but it's kind of hard when you're writing music and you listen to the same song over and over when you're trying to write an album or you're trying to mix stuff or master stuff. You kind of get bored of it sometimes, but you don't realise that no one else has listened to it. So there has been cases that I've let my friends hear demos and they've said, why isn't this on an album? And I'm like, well, I kind of got bored of it, and they're like, you're an idiot. So,
yeah, like it's funny too, because when you listen, when it comes to Saor and Fuath, like having two projects, do you almost like express a different side of yourself with it, or is it a different mind frame, or is there something that maybe ties both of those projects together since they're both coming from you?
I try. I mean, I would say Fuath is more like black metal. That's where I want to express sort of darker themes, and it's mainly influenced by sort of 90s black metal, atmospheric black metal, and I don't have any sort of folky influences in it. It all started from when I was doing demos for, I think it may have been Guardians, and I had a lot of sort of riffs and stuff that I just thought I don't want to put them in Saor. I want to just keep them to the side, and I just thought it was a waste that all these demos were sitting there, so I decided to do Fuath as a side project originally, and it was pretty well received. So I always had the intention of doing another album after that, but yeah, with Saor it's more based around Scotland, the themes of Scotland and nature and the folk elements. So yeah, I like to have two different ways of expressing myself. I don't think a lot of the Fuath stuff would really work with Saor.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny. So being that, I feel like Fuath has more of like, a style, not to pigeonhole it, but it's undoubtedly black metal. And I feel like Saor is more like experimental, more avant-garde and stuff. So is it fair to say that maybe with Fuath, like it's maybe the creative process for that is a little bit more consistent?
Yeah, well, as I said with Sir, I don't go into doing writing Sir demos with any sort of genre in my mind, but with Fuath, I definitely go in and want it to be black metal and fast and dark, and I usually write Fuath stuff around winter time, because I get that's when I bring out all the old school 90s black metal albums, and I just get a weird sort of inspiration for writing dark and fast black metal music. Whereas with Sir, I find I take a lot more time writing demos for that, and it's over the year. There's not a specific month of the year that I write demos for, so I just kind of go with the flow.
So, with winter just on the horizon and all this uncertainty that we're living in the world right now, could we possibly be getting a new Fuath album fairly soon?
Yes, I recently signed with Season of Mist, and I have recorded the full second album, which is simply called 2, and that'll be released early next year, on Season of Mist, Underground Activists, their sub-label. So yeah, and I do plan on recording more albums after that. I'm taking it a bit more seriously now. I was more of a side project before, and I played two live shows, and I really enjoyed it. It was something different from Sir. So yeah, I will be releasing that album early next year. I can't confirm the date yet, but yeah, just keep an eye on the social media and Season of Mist website.
Oh, we can't wait to hear that. Does working with Fuath, I know you said that, it is kind of like a different mind frame and a different expression, but has it ever allowed you to maybe open up new ideas to bring into some new stuff to Saor as well?
I don't really know, to be honest. I don't know if I would use most of the kind of riffs and atmosphere and stuff in Saor that I use in Fuath. I like to keep them both separate, so I can sort of have one black metal project and then Saor's more on the folk Scottish side. But Saor is definitely more experimental. But yeah, I like to keep them both separate. I don't like to mix, because then I'll just start sounding like the same project.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'll just be the same project basically, so there's no point of having Saor or Fuath.
Yeah, it's funny too. I sometimes feel bad for artists, because there's artists who are in like 17 different bands, and like a good percentage of them all sound the same. I'm like, how are you distinguishing yourself, or what's the point? I could easily see like this being an album for that project and vice versa. I feel like, if you're going to be in multiple bands, they should be, I don't want to say drastically, but should be different from each other.
I don't think they're drastically different. They are different enough. I think someone that was into Saor could hear little tiny bits of Saor and Fuath. I don't know. Maybe it's just a distinct sort of songwriting style or something. But yeah, I think they're different enough. I've seen a couple of people asking why don't I do the Fuath stuff in Saor, and I'm like, as I explained, I like to have the two separate projects. I can kind of express myself differently with both. But yeah, I understand what you mean. There is a couple of bands out there you wonder why they've got more than one or two bands. When they start sounding the same, it's kind of pointless.
Yeah. And when you look at the entirety of the Saor catalog, when going from like Aura to Guardians to Forgotten Past, is it almost like a representation of maybe like who you are at a particular time? Do you maybe look at your catalog as if it's like a self-portrait?
I'm not too sure. I mean, Aura was in 2014, it was quite a long time ago, to me at least. No, think I've always been kind of working towards the sort of production levels of Forgotten Paths. Like, I feel like Aura and Guardians, the production isn't that great, and that's just due to sort of lack of funds and where I recorded it and stuff. But I've always been aiming for the sort of sound of Forgotten Paths. I know if you put Aura and Forgotten Paths on, they might be kind of different. The song structures and the riffs and stuff might sound a little bit different, but I've always been kind of going for that Forgotten Path sound. That might sound weird, but now with Season of Mist, I can thankfully go to a proper recording studio and record a good sounding album. But I think Forgotten Paths is a pretty good sounding.
Yeah, it's definitely a great album. And didn't you also release like a remastered version of Aura as well, right? So is that a particular reason why you released that this year as well?
Yeah, that I've always wanted to remaster. Well, I wanted to remix it actually, but I don't think we have the files anymore. The stems. But yeah, Guardians. We actually had the instruments and stuff, so we just remixed that. We had a bit more time to do that, and I'm really happy with the outcome. Spencer Morris, my friend from Chicago, he recorded and mastered the originals, but to be fair on him, my labels gave me a deadline, and I kind of just threw it on him and said, I need these albums mixed and mastered by this point, and he was like, okay, shit. And I think maybe they were a little bit rushed, but he's done such a great job on the remaster of Aura. It sounds like it's still got that feeling to it, that atmosphere, but everything seems to stick out a bit more. Everything's a bit clearer, I think, and I really like that. And with Guardians, he remixed it. I really did not like the original Guardians mix. It just annoyed me. And he remixed that and remastered it, and he's done a really good job. And it seems to be getting good feedback as well. There is the occasional person that prefer the original mixes and masters, but you can't please everyone, I suppose.
No, you achieve the ultimate artistic freedom when you accept the fact that you can't please everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to lyrics, has there ever been a time where maybe like a concept or a story could help influence the music itself, or have you always needed the music to come up with lyrics or vocals to begin with?
Yeah, well, with Surf, I usually just sit down, I open my Cubase, I plug my guitar in, I just start writing riffs and melodies. I mess about with drum machines. I just try and create something. And then once I've gotten a couple of songs nearly finished, that's when I go into lyrics. And I really, really don't like writing lyrics. I think I'm rubbish at it, and I don't enjoy the process of writing lyrics. So that's why I usually try and find Scottish poems and stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And do you feel like this might be kind of like a silly question, but because I feel like with Forgotten Paths, what I find unique about it is how much the record flows. I don't consider this album to be very, as I call, shuffle friendly. I feel like you need to start off with the title track, Forgotten Paths, and end with Exile. Do you feel like that is the case? Do you feel like that maybe Forgotten Paths could almost be like a concept album in a way, or is it very much open to interpretation?
I never went into it, I never recorded it to be a concept album, but I get what you're saying. When I was writing it, straight away I knew Forgotten Paths was track one, and I knew Exile was the last track, obviously. I think that's just a nice closing track with the harp. It's just beautiful, and I always wanted to just end on an instrumental, because all the previous albums I kind of ended in really sort of epic metal songs, and this time I kind of wanted to throw people off, and I wanted to just finish on an instrumental, and it seems to have pissed a lot of people off, funnily enough, that I ended on an instrumental, which I find kind of funny.
I think that's awesome to end like on an instrumental, because I think it makes it more mysterious, and I think, you know, music in itself is a form of language, and I think instrumentals could convey just as much emotion. I don't see why people would take that the wrong way. I mean, how many times have we had instrumental intros in albums? Why can't we have an instrumental outro?
Yeah, I know, and also the other songs are like 10 minutes plus, so I think there's probably enough there for a instrumental outro just to sort of bring you back down to earth after listening to 11 to 12 minute songs.
Yeah, and you led me perfectly into the most difficult question of this whole interview. How do you know when a song is done?
When you end up hitting your head off the monitor and saying to yourself, I can't listen to this ever again. I'm only joking. I think there's you can kind of overdo things. You can repeat things too much, I think. Maybe I did that a little bit on Oda. I think there was some things I would have cut down, sort of verses, riffs. When we play, for example, when we play Oda live, it's actually a lot. It's been cut down into different bits. It's not as long as the Oda on the album. And the same goes for Carved in Stone. The same goes for, what else did we play? When we were playing Farewell, we cut the song because we just realised playing it live it's just too long. So yeah, I think you kind of realise after it's released when the songs are too long. But yeah, that's a really hard question. I'm kind of going on a tangent here, but it's a hard question to answer. I think
you could go on a tangent as long as you want. I love it when that happens.
I think you just know. It's hard to explain. Recently, I've been writing new material, and it's a bit shorter, but it's still long enough. I feel I've kind of got the right balance now because, so some of the songs just kind of drag on to me, and I kind of prefer having more songs and less that have less time than long songs and less. I don't even know what the fuck I'm saying now.
Well, I mean, I think it works.
You know what I mean?
I think it works both ways. I feel like, you know, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. If the song is very long, people are gonna criticize it for saying too much. If the song is too short, people are gonna say there wasn't enough on it. So there's always like middle ground that you have to find, and I don't even think that middle ground even exists.
I think if you're writing music, just write whatever the hell you want, and it can be as long as you want, and yeah, just do it. That's what I've always been doing. So yeah, that's the best way I can explain it. I just know when a song's long enough, and when a song's too long, for example, Oda, in my opinion.
Now, when it comes to getting inspired to write, because I feel like artistic inspiration could always strike whenever you least expect it. But for you, does inspiration come out of nowhere for you, or do you almost like need to be in a certain environment or be like in your own little headspace in order for like creative ideas to flow through?
Yeah, I need to be in my own headspace, definitely. I need to. Oh, sorry, I've been drinking beer. I'm a bit. Bit burpy. Yeah, I think I need to be in my own headspace, definitely. I need to be kind of by myself to write music in general. For sure, obviously, the landscape and nature of Scotland, I like to go out hill walking and sort of, be around nature, and that's quite inspirational. And that really inspires me to write music when I come back home. But with Forgotten Past was quite hard to write, actually, for me. It'd been maybe when it was Guardians released 2016, I think it was. So I think it was 2019 Forgotten Past was released.
Yep. So
there was a bit of time in between, and I really struggled to write music because I don't know, that was the fourth album or something, and it's just I was just paranoid that I was going to sound the same and people would be bored of it and stuff like that. So yeah, I went up to Isle of Skye and I just took my guitars and my laptop and tried to get inspired by the surroundings and stuff, and yeah, it worked. And that's when I wrote Forgotten Paths. But for this new stuff I've been writing, it's just randomly appeared. So I just one day sat down and went, yeah, I fancy writing some music, and then I ended up writing about 10 demos. So you know, it can spring up on you, and sometimes you can just go through periods of writer's block, which is just hell.
Yeah. Is there like a specific art or a specific like methodology to escaping an artist block, or do you just have to kind of let an artist block run its course?
I think you need to let it run its course. For me, I need to let it run its course, because if I start writing something and I've got writer's block, and then I'm forcing the songwriting, then I get really frustrated, and then I think, right, I'll come back to it next week, maybe it'll be better, and I'll come back to it the following week, and it's even worse. So I think when you've got writer's block, you just give in straight away and just say, right, I'm going to take a break, or I'm going to just wait for that sort of spark of inspiration to happen, and then go and record. Because, as I said, it's horrible having writer's block when you really want to be creative. Yeah, it's kind of depressing.
Yeah, definitely. It always sucks too, because like I'd imagine that there's times where you want to create, like the creative energy is there, but like nothing does come out of it.
Pretty much, yeah. That's what happened after Guardians. After Guardians, I think it was like a few months after it, I was like, yeah, I'm going to write a new album. I can't wait to write this new album. And it was just like everything I was recording, I just didn't feel much about it, and I was just getting frustrated, and I think I was a little bit worried that it was sounding too much like Guardians, and then I decided I'll take a break from it and come back to it. And I think a couple of months maybe went by, and I went up, as I said, I went up to my dad's place in Isle of Skye. I took my laptop and my guitar and tried to get inspired by the surroundings, the nature and the quietness and being secluded, because obviously, as I said, you have to be in your own headspace and be alone to actually write music, I think.
Yeah, it definitely. And, you know, like, I feel like isolation, especially for this style, is always like a great fuel for creativity. So like you kind of need to, it helps to get input from other people, but at the same time, if you're not going to be happy with it yourself, everything else is kind of useless.
I feel like you could sometimes, like, maybe I'll let my friend hear a demo and they'll be like, I'm not too sure about that, and then you're like, no, but you need to understand it's not finished, it's not the finished piece, I just want to know your opinion about this part. And then you get sort of, you go back to it and you're like, maybe this isn't actually good enough. And yeah, it's kind of, it's a weird process, I think. So that's why now I just kind of record all the demos myself, and then I might let someone hear them. And I've actually got to the point that I don't even care if they don't like it anymore. I just do what I do now, and if I like it, then cool.
Yeah, and I envy that about you, like that you're able to just put something down and come back to it later. Because I know a lot of people, they want to feel the same way when they finish a piece of art as they do when they start it. So I think that's a great I feel like that's a artistic skill that you have to acquire, to being able to put something down and just come back to it later. Like I couldn't sleep at night if I was working at something and just couldn't finish it, you know?
Sometimes I'll do stuff. Sometimes I'll record something and I'll come back to it months later because I completely forgot about it, and I'll be like, oh, that's actually really good. I'll continue doing this. And I'm like, when the hell did I record this? And I look at it and it was like months before, and I'm like, I can't even remember recording this. But hey, that sounds good, so I'll use it.
Definitely. And last but not least, the final question I wanted to ask you is, with the new Fuath album scheduled, as you said, is going to come out next year. Being that the last one, was just simply titled 1, Roman numeral 1, like, are you just going to make a direct continuation? Like, is it going to have that same sort of black metal edge, or is there maybe going to be something a little bit different with this album as well?
Yeah, well, the next one's just simply called Two. I kind of like the old school black metal bands that were kind of mysterious, and you didn't know a lot about who they were and what they were writing about, and all the art was very mysterious, and the promo pics were all black and white and in forest. I loved all that sort of mysteriousness about black metal when I was younger, before it was on the internet or whatever. There was just this really mysteriousness about black metal that I loved, and I kind of want to try and do something like that with Fuath. Although people know who I am from Saor, and you can get me on Facebook and all that crap, but I'm trying to sort of channel the old school 90s spirit into Fuath, and I think the music might surprise some people. It's still Fuath, but it's a different production. It's a bit faster and a bit more chaotic and in your face. So I think people will be surprised when they hear the new album.
Definitely. And just last, before we go, is there just anything else that you would like to promote in terms of like merch or maybe some live stream performances to hold people over before we could get back on the road, or anything else?
We recently recorded a live show in Glasgow. That was about 2 months ago, and it's up on YouTube. If anyone wants to go and watch it, it's just called Lockdown Live, and it's the last time myself and the live band performed Saor songs, which is kind of depressing. But yeah, if you want to go and check that out,
Thank you so much, everybody. We are here with Andy Marshall of Saor, as well as Fuath. Be sure to check out new Fuath coming out next year, and check out Forgotten Paths if you haven't already. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we will see you next time.